Living in France is never dull, and when I first moved here back in 2012, the prices of goods and services really surprised me. Things like gas, which, truth be told, even today, it's still more expensive here in France than in the US. But today, things like food prices, they've gone way up with all the recent inflation. But something I noticed is that certain things which are free in the US are actually things that you pay for in France. So that's what we're talking about here in this video. I'm going to get into 5 things that are not free in France, but are in the United States. Bonjour tout le monde, I'm Diane, and let's get right into number 1. Using the restroom, or the bathroom, or the toilets, whatever you call it in your country. But I didn't even know that paying to use the bathroom was a thing until I came to France for the first time when I was about 16 with a high school trip. We were in a big Paris department store, I think it was Printemps. And in addition to beautiful sinks and toilets and beautiful wood doors, it was a really nice bathroom, there was an attendant and all kinds of extras like colored toilet paper the first time I saw that, lotions, perfumes, and all kinds of things you can use to freshen up before you went back into the world to finish your shopping. And I figured this was just a fancy department store thing, like a one-time occurrence, but then I saw toilets that cost money in train stations as well. And there are actually 31, I believe, in France where you do have to pay. I've seen public toilet booths out on the street. I know you've seen them too. And back in the day, it was like 20 centimes, maybe 50 to use the bathroom. Now, I believe it's more like €1 to use one of the restrooms at the big train stations. And the way it works is that you often have to leave a coin, or a couple of coins, whatever makes up that euro, for the attendant before passing through those turnstiles to use the bathroom. So a tip is if you're going to go to the train station or, anywhere really, have some coins in your pocket. But more recently, there's an even more convenient way to pay. Often in train stations, there's a card terminal that lets you just swipe your card. Sans contact is what it's called in French. And that amount's just going to be debited right from your card. I saw that, I believe it was the Bordeaux train station bathroom. In smaller towns, you're not going to be able to pay by card. I saw that in Saint-Emilion down by Bordeaux. And you will see free toilets on the street. It's quite common to see free ones in smaller towns. But again, in touristy areas and in big cities, have some coins on you just in case. And I feel like it kind of makes sense when you see guys just kind of peeing in public on the side of a building or in the park, like in full view of people. I literally see that even out where I live, like once a week. And it's expensive to pee in a restroom. Or it's not convenient. I'm just kidding. But, another thing to point out that you might want to be aware of is that most restaurants or cafes, they do have restrooms, but they're generally for customers only. So if you're in a busy tourist area, you might even find like at a Starbucks, McDonald's, those are just 2 examples that pop into my head, you need a code. And that's printed on your receipt once you buy something. So you can't just get into the bathroom like that. You're not going to be able to just quickly duck into a restaurant to pee without buying anything. It's kind of the unwritten rule here. And sometimes you'll even see a sign. But I feel like in the US, businesses are a little more lenient about this. Like you can use the restroom if you really have to pee. But just be aware, in France, that's not always the case. All right, number 2. Calls to customer service phone numbers. Now, France's customer service, it doesn't have the best reputation, and having to pay to contact the customer service department doesn't help in that reputation department. I have to say that since I moved to France, luckily, this trend of having to pay to access customer service help, it's become less and less common since now, you can contact companies via chat or email, online, right through their website. But even today, you'll still see that some phone calls you have to make, they do have that pay per minute fee in order to get a representative on the phone. And that was so frustrating to me, especially 10 years ago when I moved here, because, you're paying for that long hold time before someone picks up. So it's often between 10 and 30, even more centimes per minute. So if you have a 10-minute hold time, it's a real expensive pain in the butt, and maybe your issue will be resolved, maybe it won't, but you'll definitely see a reminder of the call on your phone bill. So always check the fine print before calling up customer service, because as I said, these calls aren't always free. But in recent years, it's really uncommon to have to pay for customer service calls. You'll see these numbers. They're called numéros payants or surtaxés. The free ones are called les numéros non surtaxés. But anyway, back in the day when I first moved here, the cost to make a phone call to like your cell phone provider or about your gas bill, it was definitely a deterrent. And I feel like, that cost, it keeps people from getting their issues resolved. But these definitely aren't the norm these days. You won't see that as much. Thank goodness. It's free to call things like the post office about your gas bill, your mobile contract. Things like that. So thank goodness for that. Good on you, France, for getting rid of those numéros payants. That's a one I'm really happy about. Number 3, having a bank account and debit card. This one really surprised me because it's a huge difference between French and American banking. It's the fact that most accounts here in France and probably many other countries outside the US, they require a monthly service fee. Banking is not free in France anywhere really. And I did an entire video on banking differences you might want to be aware of, just about money and the banking system here. So check that out. But even a basic checking account, it'll run you at least a couple euros a month in fees that are automatically debited from your account. And in most cases, depending on what services you have, like for example, a debit card that you want to use at a store, like a little physical card, overdraft protection, and those types of things, the monthly fee is going to be more like 6 to 8, maybe even 10 euros a month. And premium cards definitely cost more. So to give you an example, at my bank, the Crédit Agricole, I pay $6.33 a month. And the debit card itself, depending on your bank and your card, it might run you anywhere from 15 euros or more a year just to have that debit card. Mine is 40. Wah, wah. Yeah, it's a lot. 40 euros per year just to have the card. And for the sake of comparison, my regular American checking and savings accounts, I have Capital One, for example, I have cards and banking, online banking, like it's always been free unless you dip below a certain balance. And, you might think, well, these fees must help to go toward French banks providing great customer service and fancy options. And to be honest, my bank is closed Mondays. It's closed daily from 12 to 2 p.m. And it's only open until noon on Saturdays. And of course, there's no drive-through banking really in France. You can't customize your card with a picture like I can on my American one. I had a picture of Dagny. And I didn't even get to choose my PIN. And just to point out, I want to say there are a lot of online banks in France which do offer free or cheaper cards, maybe reduced fees that have become popular in recent years. Because I know someone's going to say, but Diane, I bank online and it's free. And yes, they exist. They've become more popular. But banks like Boursorama, for example, they don't open accounts for Americans at all due to reporting regulations. So, also when it's time to get a loan or if you're looking for other banking services, it's often a good idea to have a local brick and mortar bank locally where you can have a relationship with your banker. And that costs money. Okay, number 4, water when you're out at a restaurant. And this one makes me laugh a little bit. It requires a bit of an explanation. And you'll have to let me know down in the comments if this has been your experience. But to start, in the US, it's pretty common when you show up to a restaurant, you're seated, to get a glass of water for each person at the table automatically, or you just ask for some water and you'll be served it. It's free tap water. It's no big deal. You get a glass. And, maybe at fancy places in the US, you'll be asked if you want sparkling or bottled, but a glass of free tap water, I'd say that's pretty standard in the US. But when I first came to France, back on that high school vacation and barely spoke French, back in the day, I remember going to a touristy cafe for lunch in Paris. Our group wanted some water. It wasn't brought automatically, so we just asked for water, in our best French accent. The waiter didn't ask if we wanted tap or bottled or sparkling. I figured I'd just get some tap water. But I figured wrong because instead we were served overpriced bottles of Evian, which added quite a bit to our bill. And I've seen this happen to tourists in Paris and other restaurants, just places where it's really touristy, where you ask for water and you're automatically given and charged for the really expensive bottled stuff. And it can be a bit of a shock with the markup, right? So in my experience, sparkling, it's called l'eau gazeuse. It's pretty popular, so you'll often be asked if you want still, if you want sparkling. Still is l'eau plate. But watch out, even if you say you want the still water, that l'eau plate, it'll most likely be a bottle of Evian, which comes with that upcharge. So if you just want free tap water, always ask for une carafe d'eau, s'il vous plaît. You can't forget the please. It's totally normal in France to ask for tap water at restaurants, even nice ones, Restaurants have a bottle, a carafe, available, so don't be shy about that. And I know in other countries, I think Italy, correct me if I'm wrong, it's kind of a faux pas. I never know if I should just say the dang words in English or in French, so I say them in both. Forgive me. But yeah, a faux pas in English. That if you ask for that in Italy, you ask for your tap water, they kind of look at you like that's not the thing to do, and you don't really want to be doing that, I heard, in Italy. But in France, it's no problem. Ask for your tap water with pride, une carafe d'eau, and you're good. Next one, 5 grocery bags. Now, in the US, if you go to the grocery store empty-handed without your bags, you'll have no problem packing up your groceries in paper or plastic at checkout for free because they're there and they're given to you. That might not be the case anymore in California, but I know when I was visiting Florida over the holidays, you go to Publix, popular grocery store, you don't have your own bags, they will give you plastic. But this is not the case in France. Bags are not free at the grocery store, so always head out to the store with your reusable bags. You can buy them at the grocery store, but they're not free. Or do what I do and get a cool wheelie shopping cart. I'll link mine below. They're pretty sweet, very handy. And just have that ready, your cart, your basket, your bags, because they're not free at checkout. And in France, sometimes at like mini marts, you'll get a small disposable plastic bag, but at your main grocery stores, they're not going to be free. Now, granted, the ones that they have for sale there, the plastic disposable bags, they're not expensive, maybe 10 or 15 centimes each. But reusable bags are the way to go. Like 99% of people use their reusable bags or their shopping cart. So just know that. And I personally like this no free bag policy. I think it's slowly starting to catch on in the US, even though, like I said, you can still get free bags. But back when I was living in New York City, I remember that stores used to give like a 5-cent discount per bag if you brought your own. I don't know if that's something stores still do. So you'll have to tell me down below if like Whole Foods will still give you like 5 cents off your order if you bring a free bag, right? Well, yeah, your own bag rather. But yeah, just remember when in France and grocery shopping, make sure you bring your bags. And I have a bunch of videos on grocery shopping in France you might want to check out. So I'll link them. And as I always say, France and the US, they're different countries. So it's only normal that things are done differently. One is not inherently better or worse, and I'm not saying that these things should be free in France. Of course, we might personally prefer one way of doing things over the other. We can have an opinion. This is just how life is in France, and I feel like as a foreigner, it's good to be aware of these differences so you're not caught off guard like I was as a little 16-year-old. Both if you live here and if you're visiting. It works both ways. So as you know, I find cultural differences super interesting. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. And as always, for more information, check out my links below. I have an ebook that'll help you prepare for your trip to France. It's titled 75 Beginner France Tips for a Standout Trip, linked below. Thank you for being here. As always, I appreciate your support, and I'll see you right back here on We in France soon. Salut!